Rock Office. I'm your host, Bill Smith.
And I'm Kevin Davis.
Here with another exciting episode. We have a special Rock and Roll Hall of Fame edition of the Rock Office. As we are filming this episode, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the artists that are being inducted this year in 2012 are downtown Cleveland, even as we speak, getting ready to prepare for the festivities that are going to happen. So what we have prepared for you this week is an episode featuring the artists and some of the controversy surrounding the Rock Hall.
We got a top 10 list that's going to be brought to you that's going to showcase some of the artists that we believe should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame but aren't.
As always, we're going to share the top 5 with you. You can find the full top 10 list on our Tumblr spot, which is therockoffice.tumblr.com. And you can always leave your comments on our Facebook site and our new Twitter page.
You can find us on Twitter at _rock_office.
So make sure you click that like and that follow and tell everyone you know about the Rock Office, what we're doing. So without further ado, let's get to our list. So kicking off our list of artists that should be inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame but aren't, my number 5, Hall & Oates. Their debut album, Whole Oats, came out in 1972. Hall & Oates is the most successful duo in rock music history. They've had so many incredible hits, sold millions of albums from Sarah Smile, She's Gone, Man Eater, Private Eyes. I mean, the list goes on and on. These guys are just hit-making machines, and they've been consistently doing it now for 40 years. And they're even innovating new techniques of getting their music out to live audience via web streams and stuff like that. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction committee, what's up with not putting Hall & Oates in there?
Good choice, Bill.
Thanks.
And my number 5 is the Monkees. Now, the Monkees were the first example of something that was created in a medium. In this case, a rock group on television that jumped off of the screen and had a big impact in the real world. Now, the Monkees, they didn't exist prior to their actual television series. And that's actually phenomenal in itself. For a band that was put together for the purposes of entertainment, not necessarily musical talent, become as big as what they were. They have a huge fan following, and yet somehow or another, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has overlooked them every single time. I think it's time for the Rock Hall to step up. I think my wife especially would agree, let the Monkees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You know, actually, you really bring up a good point, Kevin, because, you know, creating a band nowadays is very commonplace. I mean, a lot of the boy bands and a lot of the pop groups, they even make television shows now about creating the band. And it's very commonplace now, but you're absolutely right. Back in the 60s when they were first put together, this was actually really groundbreaking and really innovative in that respect. So, not on my list, my top 10 list, but I think those are valid points and I can't really argue against that pick, so that's a good choice.
Thank you.
Alright, my number 4, one of the two bands that caused more controversy amongst us diehard music fans than I think any other bands there are is Rush. Rush's debut album, Rush, was debuted in 1974, and they have been consistently making powerful, musically integrable, catchy rock ever since then. Rush, probably of the bands on my list, are probably my least favorite, but that doesn't mean I don't love them. I have so much respect for them musically, and the older I get, the more I appreciate them, their catalog. There really is no genre that they haven't touched, from progressive to heavy metal to rock, even throwing in a little reggae and new wave back in the early 80s. But they are completely underrated by critics, and you know, it's like a cult following with fans that love them. And Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction committee, what is up with that?
Good choice, Bill. I'll come back a little bit more on Rush in
the
later part of my list. Now, my number 4 is Jethro Tull. It's almost impossible for a person like myself to take the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame serious when they have not inducted bands such as Jethro Tull. Now, Jethro Tull dominated the charts for well over 20 years. Very rarely failed to sell out their personal appearances. In 1972 and 1973, they produced albums that topped the U.S. charts. Thick as a Brick, A Passion Play, 1974's War Child, and 4 others, you know, Aqualung, Living in the Past, Minstrel in the Gallery, Songs from the Wood. You know, those all cracked the top 10. Jethro Tull, obviously a lot of people know it because of the flute. I passionately call it my jazz flute, as my Ron Burgundy fans will probably think about it as well. But, you know, Jethro Tull, great band. They've performed very well throughout their career. They've got staying power, which is exactly why the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame needs to have them in there.
That's an interesting pick, Kevin. I have to tell you, I would not have chosen them. The reason being, I love you, you're my dude, but flutes don't belong in rock. I'm sorry. I can't get with the flute. Aqualung has a pretty cool riff, and that's obviously a classic tune. I just can't get with the flute, but I appreciate their contribution, and I appreciate what you're saying. And they are a band that I would not be offended by them being inducted. Alright, my number 3 is Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble. Their album Texas Flood debuted in 1983, and I spoke about the album previously on our last episode in my From the Vault section. Stevie Ray Vaughan, easily, hands down, is the most influential guitar player that has come on the scene in the last 30 years. There's no comprehensible reason he hasn't even been nominated to be inducted. I'm sorry, this is an outcry. This is blatant favoritism. Stevie Ray Vaughan in Double Trouble as a unit is one of the greatest three-piece in rock history. I put them alongside Cream and as one of their peers in that genre. And I have no idea why SRV is not inducted into the Hall of Fame other than the Illuminati or the Masons or some other kind of secret society are secretly pulling the strings behind the men and women of the Inner Circle induction membership. SRV needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick, Bill. Not only talking just about one of the most influential artists, but also one of the most very talented artists that exists. Obviously very well known for his guitar playing, very bluesy, very talented just in general.
Well, when you're a guitar player and you come on the scene in the early 80s and you influence legends like Eric Clapton, Keith Richards, Buddy Guy. I mean, these are men who are pioneers in that blues rock genre, and you're coming on the scene influencing them. Men like David Bowie and Jackson Browne, who are established, helped found a career for this gentleman. John Hammond, who found Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen, also found Stevie Ray Vaughan and gave him his chance. You're talking about a gentleman who is rubbing shoulders with the creme de la creme of the music business, who, by the way, all those men, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, David Bowie, and Jackson Browne, that I just mentioned, are all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but as well as Eric Clapton. Where is Stevie Ray Vaughan? Where is the justice for him in this category? I want to know. It makes no sense to me.
Number 3 on my list is Chicago. Now, Chicago has been highly reported as one of the most popular rock and roll bands of Billboard chart history. With that being said, I think the main problem with the band not getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the fact that there's early Chicago and later Chicago. Now, to me, both versions are really great. There's been many members of the band that have carried through that entire presence. They've been very successful with their albums. They're probably one of the most innovative bands that I have personally ever listened to. Their horn section just adds an element to their music that not everybody gets. Maybe a little bit like the Jethro Tull and Bill not necessarily liking the flute aspect, but they bring a very broad sound to their music. And that's what I like. I think that's what their fans like. They deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Hands down, talented musicians, great music, and top performers. I don't know how you can deny them.
Not one of my picks, but I completely back you up on this. You just can't deny it. The guys have hits. They've had solid selling albums. And also, for many years, they're one of the highest grossing live bands in the nation. So, putting all that together, it's a great choice. Not one on my top 10 list per se, but I back you and I agree with that, and that makes me want to say, what's up with that? My number 2 is The Cure. Their debut album, Three Imaginary Boys, came out in 1979, and I have to say, other than U2, I hear no bigger band's influence in modern music than The Cure. Their appearance, I think, pushes some people off because they're very heavily influenced by the whole goth scene. They are incredible musicians. Robert Smith, the leader, is an incredible lyricist. They have developed and cultivated such a melodic sense of rhythm and timing throughout their catalog. And they have had so many hits, Just Like Heaven, Fascination Street, Pictures of You, the whole Disintegration album that came out in 1989. Absolutely incredible. On my top 10 list of best albums from the 1980s. Friday, I'm in Love. The list of hits go on and on and on.
It's a great pick. They deserve to be on the list. They deserve to be in the hall. My number 2 on my list is Kiss. Kiss is probably the most polarizing band on the list. Their stage show is just incredible. I personally have never been able to witness. However, I have seen video, I've heard from spectators, you know, everything complete with fire breathing, blood spitting, ridiculous pyrotechnic deserved to be there. I think Bill's going to probably hit a little bit more on Kiss. My choice for number 2, Kiss.
And with that, we'll just roll into my number 1, which is Kiss. As you can see, one of my all-time favorite bands. Critics hate them, fans adore them. One of the most influential bands in rock history. Ace Frehley, as a guitar player, really set the standard, set the bar, not just the theatrical aspect like Kevin was talking about, but in the way that he tuned his guitar and the way he played his guitar. The entire 80s glam rock scene, for better or worse, would not have existed had it not been for Kiss and, you know, Ace Frehley with his guitar playing. Obviously have sold millions and millions of albums. They have had plenty of hits throughout the years. They are still active, although not in the form that I, as a Kiss fan, would like to see them in. However, I'm convinced somewhere along the line, Gene must have pissed somebody off to not have them in the Rock Hall. Because all this is, to me, is elitism in its absolute worst form. Now, when you have a band that's this influential, that has sold this many albums, that has changed literally the face of rock and roll, how it is presented, how bands perform, how they deliver the goods on the road, and then how they are also marketed, how they're also merchandised. You know, Kiss they were pioneers in the 70s, long before it's even considered the norm now. And if you look at artists today, such as Lady Gaga, for instance, you know, the whole theatrics of her stage show, of what she brings as a persona in her life. Kiss really is the godfathers of that. These guys need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that's all there is to it.
Now, my personal number 1 on my top 10 is none other than Rush. Obviously, huge fan. You'll see my Rash t-shirt here. Those of you who are big fans, you'll agree with me. Rush deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Probably just as overlooked as Kiss. You're talking about 3 musicians. Probably one of the fullest sounds you'll ever hear from 3 musicians. With that being said, you've got Geddy Lee, Neil Peart, and Alex Lifeson. They changed music. These guys are masterful musicians. You want to talk about a band that has staying power. This band is still performing concerts today. And if you go, you will hear music that is just as it was on the record. We're talking pinpoint, and their craft is flawless. Geddy Lee, obviously, some people, it takes a little bit of getting used to enjoy what he does as far as voice. But there's not a person alive, a musician, that can not look at his bass playing and just be it all. Neil Peart, I don't think there's a drummer alive that doesn't drool when they see Neil play. He's a master at what he does. Watching him is just completely hypnotizing. And then, of course, Alex Lifeson, one of the biggest underrated guitarists that there is out there. Some of these songs that these guys have put out display all of this in one song. And then on top of it, you're talking about some of the most deep lyrics that you will ever hear in your entire life. This band, they deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Year after year, overlooked. It's ridiculous. I don't think that I can ever look at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame the same until Rush is there.
You know, and I touched on them earlier. I just want to reiterate, these guys have never even been included on a ballot to even be nominated to be inducted. Every time I go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I get overwhelmed because, in the words of the Rolling Stones, I know it's only rock and roll, but I like it. And it's such a huge part of my life that, you know, when I go to this place, it's almost like a spiritual experience, if you will. It's just such a shame. It's a elitist boys club.
There needs to be more fans that come out, that petition the Rock Hall to get these people in there. I empower you to join forces and do that.
As a music fan, it hurts me. Because obviously you can't please everybody all the time. It's like politics, and everyone has different tastes, whatever. If you look at the fact, the examples we gave you in the rest of our top 10 list, these are blatant, just ignorant, rude displays of giving the cold shoulder, giving the one-fingered salute to artists who are giants in the field that many of the people who are inducted now have ridden on their shoulders. No offense to Guns N' Roses, but I can't believe Guns N' Roses is inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame before Kiss. That's asinine. Absolutely asinine. It makes absolutely no sense. Alright everyone, for my pick of the week this week, we have the new Counting Crows album, Underwater Sunshine, or what I did on my summer vacation. This is a new venture for the band. They left their major label Geffen in 2008 after the release of their album Saturday Morning, Sunday Nights. This is unique because they released it on their own independent label, and it's also unique for the Crows because this is an album consisting of all cover songs, which kind of takes me back as a fan because I believe Adam Duritz, the lead singer, is probably one of the greatest lyricists of his generation. But the Crows pay homage to some of their favorite bands from the past, as well as highlighting some new up-and-coming talent that they take some of their songs and covers. Now, some of the songs that they cover are, the Ooh La La by The Faces, keeping in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame theme. They also cover Amy by Pure Prairie League and Ballad of El Goodo by Big Star. Some of the lesser known songs, but they're really standout tracks, is the first song called Untitled, love song, and another song called Mercy. Obviously I'm biased, they're my favorite band, I'd tell you to run out and buy the CD in a heartbeat, but I actually really do recommend this album. I think it's very interesting. The Crows are incredible musicians. I've seen them live several different times. They have never disappointed me live. And I have to say that one of the coolest things about buying the album is that inside the individual band members on the liner notes talk about the song selection, how they chose the songs, what the songs mean to them, and just how they ended up with this particular bunch of songs. So go out and pick that CD up. It's available at your local music retailer. We have a new segment this week that we're introducing. It's called The Artists You Need to Know. And what we are doing is highlighting independent and local artists that we have discovered and that we want to share and pass along with you. This week, I'm highlighting a band called Attack Cat. Attack Cat is a duo consisting of Dave Douglas and Rachel Hoskins. Their EP they released is called Dandy Outlaw. On this effort, it's 5 songs consisting of a very danceable pop with crunchy guitar mix. Imagine what Maroon 5 and Christina Aguilera did with their Move Like Jagger song. That's kind of the feel in this album. Great production, the sound's really clean. I'm really impressed with the musicianship on it. They write catchy hooks. Of the 5 songs on this EP, the song Remarkable is the one that stands out to me the most. It is a perfectly polished pop gem waiting to be released to radio. The video for Remarkable was filmed in and around Cleveland and was recently premiered with rave reviews at the Cleveland International Film Festival. There's other songs on the album that stand out are Shoot From the Hip and a song called Tricks, which has a Kaisha kind of a feel to it. I'm very interested in seeing what these guys come up with in the future. I know they are currently in the studio working on more material, so keep an eye out for these guys. The name is Attack Cat. I'm sure you're going to like it. This week's From the Vault, we have a great band that I've loved for years, but unfortunately I've never received the recognition I feel they're due. The band is called Screaming Trees. The name of the album is Sweet Oblivion. Sweet Oblivion is the 6th album that the band released, and it was released in 1992. Now, to compare the sound, for those unfamiliar, it's a bit of Pearl Jam and a mixture of Soundgarden with a lot of Dinosaur Jr. type guitar sound. Dinosaur Jr. I think was a big influence on the band, but they pay homage to the classic rock roots that so many of the grunge bands did with a lot of Zeppelin and Black Sabbath influence. The lead singer, Mark Lanegan, doesn't really have the charisma of Eddie Vedder or the vocal prowess that Chris Cornell does, but what he does have is a unique, unmatched, parallel genuinity in his voice that those other guys can't touch. They have a very solid melodic sense. They know when to rein in and when to let go in their performance. They have great sense of timing and musicality. This album, I think, will be enjoyed by fans of the genre. So all those albums are available now. Run down to your local music retailer and make sure you pick those up. Alright, for this week's Battle Royale, we're keeping with the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame theme. And we have 2 bands that are really cut from the same cloth. They're branches from the same tree. In this quarter, we have Faces, and in this corner, we have Humble Pie. Now, both bands are offshoots really from Small Faces. Kind of went forward at that point, and Faces features Rod Stewart and Ron Wood. Humble Pie, you know, their claim to fame with their lead guitarist was Peter Frampton and lead vocalist Steve Marriott. Really, I have to tell you, this has been the toughest battle royale for me so far. Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Well, you know, two very underrated bands, like Bill said. I won't go on real long this week. My opinion, you know, when I say somebody says Faces versus Humble Pie, first thing that goes through my mind is, are you serious? To me, you know, the Faces, they were fronted by one of the biggest 70s rock hacks that there was. And I'm sorry, I'm not a huge Rod Stewart fan. He could sing, but the fact of the matter is, as a front man, he just didn't do anything for me. I do adore Ronnie Wood's contributions and still like what Ronnie Lane was doing, but you know, Town and Country tops all of that. Even when Humble Pie broke down to dumb boogie music, Marriott's voice just carried it through. He's probably one of the purest singers that I have ever heard. When you try and compare like Stay With Me to 30 Days in the Hole, in my mind 30 Days in the Hole sticks with me all day long. I just can't get it out of my head. Very simply, my pick goes to Humble Pie this week. Bill, what are your thoughts?
I wish it were that clear cut for me. I have to say, part of the confusion I think with Faces is because during the time Ron Wood and Rod Stewart were writing material, it was like one big pot, and then they divvied it up. Here's the Faces stuff, here's the beginning of Rod Stewart's solo career. It's very confusing. What's even more confusing is both of these bands, a lot of their back catalog within the last couple years is being re-released and remastered on CD, but for a very long time, the lines between what Rod Stewart was doing solely and then what Faces was doing as a band were always blurred, because Faces tunes would turn up on Rod Stewart compilation, Rod Stewart songs would turn up on Faces compilations. It got very confusing. Humble Pie was just very clear cut. Here's Humble Pie, now here it is. Now that being said, we're comparing their two catalogs. You know, Faces has so many great songs. You know, Humble Pie on the same hand, 30 Days in the Hole, Black Coffee, Natural Born Woman. But the defining thing for me and what really tips the scale is Humble Pie I discovered first. I love harmonica. I play harmonica myself. The harmonica player for Humble Pie is incredible. Essentially, the victory by a narrow margin for me goes to Humble Pie, but I will say this about both bands. They are quintessential rock and roll to me. When I think of what rock and roll was and what I sadly say will never be again, is just dirty, blues bass, boogie woogie, balls to the wall rock. It's, you know, it's gone the way of the buffalo these days. Rock in that pure, nasty, dirty form just doesn't exist. Why Humble Pie isn't being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame along with Small Faces and the Faces is a whole nother subject for a whole nother time, but I completely disagree with that. Ultimately, Humble Pie wins it for me by a small margin.
And I do have to add, you know, in my opinion, neither band touches Small Faces.
Alright, so now you know what we think. We want to hear from you. This week's poll, you can hit us up on our Facebook and vote for who you want. Is it Humble Pie or is it the Faces? Vote below and let us know.
Well, we appreciate you tuning in this week. You know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony and week is a grand celebration that deserves to be talked about. But this week, we hope that we've made you think about what some of the things you wish would happen with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would occur, whether it be people being inducted or the way that they conduct business. You know, leave it on our post, leave it on our blog. You know, once again, that's the Rock Office. .tumblr.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/rockoffice. This week, brand new announcement. May have seen it on Facebook. Now available on iTunes. Search us out. Type the Rock Office.
Give us a shout out online. Make sure you click that like button. Also, we now have a Twitter page, which we mentioned earlier. Go ahead and click that, follow us. Please help us get the word out there if you like what we're doing. Remember, support your local record stores by going out and buying the physical copies of albums instead of downloading them. We will see you next time. Take care and God bless.